So this is another French against a gentleman with a master rating who I played a number of times, and they have a very interesting username, and in fact, I'm interested in defeating what they play, which is the whatever variation of the French, and they play it extremely well. They lock up the queen side and blockade things with their queen and move their king to f8, and it's just a nightmare of positional stuff. So to a certain extent, you're going to see my scouting of this particular player who I've run into, and this is the first time I beat him. Before then, there were losses and draws. So what you're going to notice is an alternative form of how to approach the whenever in this case against a person who just will not deal with anything but a completely locked position. And without further ado, we're going to go to our game. Turn on our engine. So, interestingly, the computer says he takes d5 instead of pushing. So, actually, Stockfish 8 says that. Also, this program says that. I move bishop to d2, which is a semi-gambit. And it says black gets an immediate advantage. Wanted me to play a3. And now what we're entering into kind of a strange-looking, almost Harash-like defense. Black is not playing the best moves. However, black is fine. He's got an even game. I should have moved to a3, obviously. I'm playing what feels normal. Completely dead even game at this point. But you notice the difference is that we don't have this giant locked up pawn structure with no dynamic capability. Well, we have our even pawns and a very clear thing going on, which is that black's got good development, but he's got an isolated d pawn, and it's mobile, and it's also attackable. I wanted me to play a3, no doubt, to counter the problem of the knight coming to b4, which removes my best attacker. Now it wants h6 from black, and instead, this player goes there. So, I don't know whether you can see this, but I mean, there is a combination here involved with bishop takes knight, followed by knight takes pawn. And if, of course, you know, it's a poison pawn, but then the b2 pawn is also loose. So what we're going to do is very quietly try to improve our position. And now black is very quietly defending his d pawn. And this move, in a way, is a baiting move. You know, we have complete equality here, and we're just waiting for h6 to be played, in which case we're going to open things up. And a bishop to g4 could have been annoying. Now it wants knight to b5, with an advantage in a queen exchange, but this is not what we're playing for in this game. Instead, we play our queen over here, which once again gives us a completely even game. Black is doing very normal developing type moves, but if you'll notice, he actually recommended moving his queen back. And now we're beginning to build up pressure on the h7 pawn, which was part of our cover sheet here. And it forces him to do some aggressive counterplay. He's begging me to take, which I do. And now, you know, it becomes kind of a really nip and tuck type game, because the knight and f6 is going to have to go to e4 eventually, discovering on the queen. So do you do it now or later? Well, later, obviously. Okay. So that cuts off the bishop on d3. And this is a necessary move at this point, although I believe white's going to come out really well in it. Instead, what you see is essentially white has a sound advantage, but black is going to blunder. He's decided that he has to defend from behind or attack the b pawn or do something, and I'm not quite sure what, but knight to e4, he just wasn't ready to allow me to lift the rook. The rook would have ended up on e4. So the computer wants me right away to play rook takes e6. And that's probably a perfectly sound sack. I mean, obviously it is, the computer says it is. You know, he takes back. Obviously it says he can't take back, because knight to, the check on g6, knight to g5, that sort of powerful attack. Instead we move the knight first, which isn't as accurate. It allows him the defense of bishop to f8, giving up a piece. So he does not do that. He does not give up a piece. Instead he attacks. And when he attacks, you know, he thinks he's going to cover his knight from behind if I move my knight, then move his bishop back. Instead he runs headlong into a mate. And it's hard to understand how a person rated this high ends up with this sort of situation. See, I make a very bad interim move here, because it allows him to play knight to g4. So shame on me. But knight to g4 would have lost anyway. So the queen moves, and now we check, and now we take, and now there's a mate. So it's not as fast a mate as the computer wanted, but you've seen me play these games before. It's not like the mate has gone away. In fact, he resigned at this point. So another very short game against a strong opponent, showing an example of how to avoid the whenever.